We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. As addicts, we turn our will and our lives over many times to a destructive power. Our will and our lives were controlled by drugs. We were trapped by our need for instant gratification that drugs gave us. During that time, our total being, body, mind, and spirit was dominated by drugs. For a time, it was pleasurable. Then the euphoria began to wear off, and we saw the ugly side of addiction. We found that the higher our drugs took us, the lower they brought us. We faced two choices. Either we suffered the pain of withdrawal or took more drugs. For all of us, the day came when there was no longer a choice. We had to use. Having given our will and lives to our addiction, in utter desperation, we looked for another way. In Narcotics Anonymous, we decide to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him. This is a giant step. We don't have to be religious. Anyone can take this step. All that is required is willingness. All that is essential is that we open the door to a power greater than ourselves. Our concept of God comes not from dogma, but from what we believe and from what works for us. Many of us understand God to be simply whatever force keeps us clean. The right to a God of your understanding is total and without any catches. Because we have this right, it is necessary to be honest about our belief if we are to grow spiritually. We found that all we needed to do was try. When we gave our best effort, the program worked for us, as it had worked for countless others. The step does not say we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God. It says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. We made the decision. It was not made for us by the drugs, our families, a probation officer, judge, therapist, or doctor. We made it. For the first time since that first high, we have made a decision for ourselves. The word decision implies action. This decision is based on faith. We have only to believe that the miracle that we see working in the lives of clean addicts can happen to any addict with a desire to change. We simply realize there is a force for spiritual growth that can help us become more tolerant, patient, and useful in helping others. Many of us have said, take my will and my life, guide me in my recovery, show me how to live. The relief of letting go and letting God helps us develop a life that is worth living. Surrender to the will of our higher power gets easier with daily practice. When we honestly try, it works. Many of us start our day with a simple request for guidance from our higher power. Although we know that turning it over works, we may still take our will and our life back. We may even get angry because God permits it. At times during our recovery, the decision to ask for God's help is our greatest source of strength and courage. We cannot make this decision often enough. We surrender quietly and let the God of our understanding take care of us. At first, our heads reeled with the questions: what will happen when I turn my life over? What will become perfect? We may have been more realistic than this. Some of us had to turn to an experienced NE member and ask, what was it like for you? The answer will vary from member to member. Most of us feel open-mindedness, willingness, and surrender are the keys to this step. We have surrendered our will and our lives to the care of a power greater than ourselves. If we are thorough and sincere, we will notice a change for the better. Our fears are lessened, a faith begins to grow, and we learn true meaning of surrender. We are no longer fighting fear, anger, guilt, self-pity, or depression. We realize that the power that brought us to this program is still with us and will continue to guide us if we allow it. We are slowly beginning to lose the paralyzing fear of hopelessness. The proof of this step is shown in the way we live. We have come to enjoy living clean and want more of the good things that any fellowship holds for us. We now know that we cannot pause in our spiritual program. We want all that we can get. We are now ready for our honest self-appraisal, and we begin with step 4.
Fantastic, Kerry. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, and I should say, you probably noticed we're recording, no videos being recorded. We just share this with other members and people that can't be here. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to hand the workshop over to Wilvena G from New York. Over to you, Wilvena. Oh, just unmute you. There you go. There you go.
Hi, everybody. My name's Wilvena, and I'm an addict. I want to say welcome to all the newcomers on this call, everybody counting days, because our message is that an addict, any addict, can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way of life. Today, I have 18 years, 6 months, and 18 days clean, and I am a satisfied customer of Narcotics Anonymous. I guess I want to put it that way, because, you know, when it comes to the step work, I had a lot of questions and issues when I first came here. And actually, step 3 was one of those steps that I took a look at the wording and I automatically said, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't see how I'm going to do that. You know, I'm very rebellious. You're asking me to turn something over. I'm not clear about what it is that I'm turning over. I didn't turn over anything when I was using, and now you're asking me to surrender something that I'm not very clear about. I had some issues with a higher power and a God of my understanding because of some really traumatic issues that happened to me in my early life. I lost my my brother, who was really my best friend, but also my first using buddy at a very early age. And a year later, I lost my dad, who was murdered. And so I had some real questions about, you know, what the supposedly God's will was, and I had to repair all of that through my first couple of steps. I should also mention that I'm an addict that I changed my clean date 3 times before getting to this place where I am now. So if you're coming back from a relapse, welcome back. If you're detoxing from a substance, you're very welcome in this meeting. And you know, the first part of step 3, as it talks about, is making a decision. And I know that when I was using, the making a decision part was a real question, because either I made a decision out of impulse, or my decisions were all pretty much grounded in whether or not I was going to use and what I needed to do that. And or I made no decision at all, and I just let things happen to me, like it talks about in the basic text, living a life of default. So I know that there's a lot of tools that we have in this program, and a lot of tools that I was taught by my sponsor, and excuse me, a couple of the tools that I want to mention. I know that for those people that read the Just for Today, the real interesting part about the Just for Today is that if anyone looks in the index, they will see that under step 3, there are literally 14 entries under step 3 in the basic text. And that being able to look back, I'm going to refer to some of them later, but actually it's another real critical way of using these tools. And you know, in one of the entries, it talks about surviving our emotions. When I came into NA, I felt like my biggest challenge was the pain, panic, and real tangible anger and resentment that I felt like I was dealing with every single day when I had under 90 days clean. So, you know, in the entry of the Just for Today, under step 3, it says, you know, surviving our emotions. It says that when we were using, we never gave ourselves the chance to learn how to survive our emotions. You don't survive your feelings, you drug them. So in the 3rd step, it basically helped me to identify my feelings and live through them. So in this workshop, I'm gonna, I guess, break up a couple of categories, and I'm gonna ask like a question and then, ask some people to share on that, and then, come back into the meeting. So the first portion of this workshop, I want to talk about making a decision. And I'm gonna ask people to share about the making a decision. I know that one of the things that really saved me with being able to understand this third step, and this is the step I actually use every single day, because it tells us that, we can make a decision and then we could take our will back. But part of the making a decision is that it's an action that I take after I've considered the alternatives. So I could consider alternatives by asking my sponsor. I could get feedback in a meeting. I can look at the literature. I can get centered and ask my higher power. And then I can wait and listen for the answer. So I'm going to ask, question I'm going to ask is, what areas of my life are difficult for me to turn over or make a decision? If anybody wants to raise their hand and chime in for that. What areas of my life are difficult for me to turn over or make a decision?
Thanks, Wilvena. If anybody wants to input on that, if you just raise your virtual hand and don't be shy. Mohammed, just unmuting you.
Hi, I'm Mohammed and I'm an addict.
Mohammed.
Hi, maybe that like the things that I think, like my disease's way of translating everything, I wanted to change real quick, and my sponsor always tells me to release and surrender to my higher power, and I always find that it's really hard to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think it was Kyle next. Kyle, I'm just unmuting you.
Yeah, cheers, mate. For me, the toughest part, the toughest decision, or the toughest part for me to hand over is my financial stuff. Having being a compulsive gambler as well as an addict and stuff like that, and having never really come from a background of money and stuff like that, I've always been really bad with money, and it's one of those parts of my life that I've struggled to kind of turn over. And it's the one part that I struggle with the most, basically.
Thank you, Kyle. We've got Noreen next.
I struggle with waiting for the outcome, like turning it over and waiting for the outcome. Like I always want to like put my hands in it. It's kind of like what you already said, like I'll turn it over and then like I want to like help God. I want to help God out a little bit. Like I think that I make the decision to turn it over, and then I want to say like, God, let me help you out here. Like I'm having a situation with my grandson, and like he's trying to manipulate me, and I kind of see the disease behavior in him, like and it reminds me so much of my addiction. He's trying to bargain with me, and my decision is final, and I could just see like how his behavior reminds me so much of the disease of addiction, the bargaining and the some of the behaviors that come with active addiction, and I have to say no, so that's what I kind of struggle with. The letting it play out, letting things play out.
Great.
Does that make sense?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doreen.
Wilvena, we'll just take the next three and then
Yeah, because I'm gonna respond after we take the next three.
Okay, Kerry.
Hi, thanks, Paul. I'm Kerry, I'm an addict.
Okay.
I really struggle with letting go when it comes to parenting and my children. I try and control that, and I really struggle with just letting them be and accepting that they're little humans with minds of their own. You know, that's a big one for me. I obsess a lot about that and beat myself up quite a lot. That's it.
Thank you, Kerry. May?
Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name's May. I'm an addict. Thanks, Wilvena. Lovely to see you. So you know something, this is a tricky one for me because I don't really struggle with making a decision. It's following up with the right action. For example, food. You know, I make the decision to go to the fridge and what do I take, or when I go shopping, what do I pick up? You know, so it's that part. But I tell you, so when I feel insecure in a relationship, I tend to control with the way I look, the way I speak, what he does. I can, if my house is under threat, my finance, you know, if it's my children, those are the areas I really struggle with.
Thank you, May. Great to hear you. And Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane. I'm an addict.
Hey, Jane.
Gosh, I struggle with like loads of things. Like the patience, which has already been mentioned, the patience, you know, like surrendering the outcome. So surrendering the outcome is a big one for me. You know, that controlling thing, that wanting to, you know, manipulate the outcome, send it off in a certain direction. That's one for me as well. The need to be right. Do you know what I mean? That's quite difficult for me. And yeah, certainty, surrendering that, you know, that certainty with that, which kind of ties in with the need to be right. I think what I skip out in the process is I always want to go from, I become aware of something, so I always want to go from awareness to action, you know. Okay, so that's the problem, and this is, do you know what I mean? This is what I need to do to fix it. But there's quite a lengthy period of acceptance in that, which I've got no patience, tolerance, the need to be right, you know, can't surrender the outcome. So that all comes playing into it for me. There's probably a whole lot more. Is it the right decision? Self-doubt is another one. Is it the right decision? Am I making the right decision? So yeah, I've got loads of stuff around this area. Thank God for prayer and meditation. So yeah, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know what? I have a lot of identification with these challenges that are mentioned, the finances, the family. Here's one of the things that my sponsor made me aware of. You know, between the second step and getting restored to sanity is the idea that, first of all, being restored means I no longer am going to place myself in degrading situations. So when I'm panicked about my finances, and I'm going to absolutely say, as a woman, there are definitely some scenarios where I could degrade myself to try to get a quick fix. So if my values and holding on to uncomfortable feelings, part of the integration between step 2 and step 3 is reminding myself that my higher power interrupted my death. My higher power has given me evidence that, you know, when I let him handle what's going to go on without me messing in it and trying to control with my self-will, that it's going to be okay. I have evidence that things are going to be okay. Also, living in the moment with making those decisions. To me, the beauty of the third step is I can make this decision in the moment. I don't have to go all the way to the end of the road and say, well, I've got this bill and I'm going to be broke. You know, I'm living in a house right now. My, you know, my bills right now, the appliances are on. I have food in the refrigerator. In the moment, I am okay. What do I need to do in terms of action to, you know, to make sure that I'm not acting out, you know? And there's also a difference between destructive self-will and constructive action. You know, in our Another Look IP, it talks about what constructive action is. And constructive action is considering the needs of others and then acting appropriately to, you know, to not harm others with my self-will. So, and sometimes that means holding on for a moment, or, you know, listening to an answer in a meeting, getting grounded, and trying to play out all of the consequential thinking. I know when I first got here, the idea of consequential thinking, I didn't even know what that was, like when they say play the tape, right? So one of the things about God's will, I know it's not God's will for me to use drugs, right? It's not God's will for me to degrade myself in my own eyes. Like, part of the esteem that I get, and it has a lot to do with me coming to this meeting. I had an emergency earlier today, and, you know, I said to myself, listen, I made a commitment to be at this meeting, and I know I'm going to make some calls, I'm going to work some things out, and if I keep my word to myself, it's going to be okay, instead of dropping everything and running amok. So, you know, that's kind of, for me, a big part of, you know, the decision piece of it. And also, you know, one of the other things my sponsor tells me is, just because I have a good idea doesn't mean it's a God idea. And so the idea of the making a decision part is being able to get an informed conscience for my decision. You know, calling, asking some people, looking some things up, and getting grounded and centered. And the longer I'm clean, I'm able to trust my gut and know that if I do something that goes against my sense of values, my integrity, that I'm not degrading myself, that, you know what, it may not be the decision that I thought it was going to be. That's also the part of the letting go of control, is that maybe it's a different vision that I'm not able to see right now, right? But that if I don't act out and I hold on and I do the next right thing spiritually, it has always worked out for me, always. So the next portion that I'm gonna ask a question about is the self-will, because a big confusion for me was, what is it that I'm turning over exactly, right? So, you know, the Step Working Guide actually has 5 definitions of self-will. And I remember when I first looked at that, I was actually really shocked to see what it was that I was running off of. You know, obviously in different parts of our literature, it says that our addiction is self-will, but in the Step Working Guide, it says sometimes it's withdrawal and isolation. So when I refuse to go to a meeting, when I refuse to pick up the phone, when I refuse to take care of personal responsibilities, and I isolate myself, that is self-will. And ultimately, I didn't realize that when I refused to connect with other people in recovery, that self-will that's disconnecting me from, you know, the atmosphere of recovery is what is going to ultimately lead back to the ultimate act of self-will, which is to use drugs, right? So that was the first definition. The next definition that it says in the Step Working Guide, it talks about acting to the exclusion of any other considerations except what I want. So I don't care what my partner wants. I don't care what my kids want. I want to do what I want, and I don't care what anyone else says, right? So, you know, that took me a while to figure that out too, because I also thought self-will was an asset, right? I thought that my ability to do shit was just totally the asset that helped me to survive my addiction. But the other definition that they have is stampeding over anyone who questions our right to do what we want. And listen, I heard you, Jane, in terms of being right, you know, because that was like a defect I ran with for a long time, you know, and also my compulsive desire to correct people that I think, because I thought it was my job to correct other people, right? That's my job. I'm supposed to tell you that you're wrong. And in the basic text, it actually tells us that when we admit that our lives are unmanageable, we no longer need to defend, you know, our point of view. And it also says others can be wrong, right? So like as a parent, like my kids make mistakes, they want to be wrong. My third step with them is I'll tell them what my position is. And then if they still want to be wrong, you know what, they come around to understanding that they were mistaken, right? Or maybe not in that day. So the last part of the self-will definition is, it says that we completely lose touch with our conscience and a higher power. So I know that for me, there's different ways I get back in touch with my higher power. Like one of the things I like to do, I like to take a hot bath and just get really centered. That's like how I kind of come to consciousness, because the world is shut out. It's very hot in there, and I'm able to kind of clear my mind, right? People get in touch with their higher power in different ways. But I'm going to ask you guys right now, in terms of the self-will part, it says, how has acting on self-will affected my life? Because I wasn't really able to see that. And I guess that, you know, the corollary to that is, you know, are pursuing my goals harming anyone, right? So that's one of the litmus tests of you know, the third step. How has acting on self-will affected my life?
Okay, Noreen, I'll just unmute you.
It has acted on self-will, has affected me tremendously. It's pushed me away from people, pushed people away from me, it's caused me to act out what do you want to call that? The symptoms in the first step of paranoia, distrust of others, all that stuff that we talk about in the first step, the symptoms, you know, and it's been a really tough thing for me, you know, because I don't like feeling like that. And I think I want to say that it has been learned behavior, because I can remember as far back as my mother being that way, you know, so I just want to say that, and I don't want to blame her, but I remember my mother having issues with people, and learning that was how I learned how to act from her, you know. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Noreen. Jane, just unmuting you.
Hi. Yeah, so self-will. It's a real killer, isn't it? It's a real killer for anything spiritual. Do you know what I mean? Because it's putting me in charge. So when I'm in charge, just all consideration of my fellow beings, of my higher power, of love for myself, it all goes out the window. It becomes some sort of like mental mega mind or something like that, wanting to take over the world. So it really, I think probably the biggest thing, or the biggest two things it does for me, is it really gets in the way of my intimacy with others and my intimacy with myself. So it really gets in the way of intimacy. And I think probably the second thing is it makes me avoid the spiritual growth that's available. So like I kind of cling to the dysfunctions as a way of avoiding facing the inevitable pain that I'm going to have to face. And step three's like been really helpful for me with all of these things. You know, especially when I decide that my growth is more important than my safety, you know. So that, I think that's something that I have to be willing to do in step three, is put my growth, my spiritual growth, before feeling safe. But that's the two big ones for me: intimacy and avoidance of pain. Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. Mohammed, how is your self-will impacted on others?
Mohammed Addict, my self-will impacted on others, maybe like with my wife. every time I feel like I'm less than other people, and I get these thoughts of anger because I want to control the way she talks, and I start to say stuff that I'm not supposed to say. I'm supposed to share about them, and that impacts her badly when she feels not loved or not safe around me. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And lastly, Kyle.
Am I answering how it's affected others or how it's affected myself, or both?
I think it was how it's impacting negatively on others, I think will be asked.
Yeah, you know what? You could answer either one is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I'll do both. I mean, the more I act on self-will, the smaller my world becomes, and the less I feel free because I just put myself in situations. And when it comes to others, I want to isolate from others, because when I act on self-will, I might not turn up, or I might not keep promises, or I might let people down along the way. And it really affects my relationships with others, especially my family, and none of them live local to me. They all live quite far away, and it's a difficult one. But yeah, no, I'll just leave it as that.
Thank you,
No,
Kyle.
thank you.
Oh, Matt, sorry, I missed you there. Hey, Matt.
Oh yeah. For me, my self-will, it always, like for both myself and for other people, it gives me that false sense of confidence. Like, I can do this, I can do that, I'm in control, I can be there for other people, I can do well at work. And then because I don't have any control over my addiction, all those things fail. And then I'm just left with that self-loathing about it. So it's, for me, my self-will is so destructive. It brought me to my knees. But also, I know this sounds a bit warped, but I have gratitude for that as well. I feel like I need to have gratitude that that self-will has brought me to here. So yeah, although it's like destructive, I'm beginning to see gains from it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
I identify with that, Matt. Thank you. Frankie.
Yeah, hi Wilvena. Hi everyone. I wanted to send you this question, but it's not like that in the chat. I could only message Paul or someone. With self-will, from what I hear with everyone sharing, is the question, sorry to put a question out, but is self-will a bad thing? That's kind of the question I'd like to chuck in, because one of the things I'm hearing is a lot of negativity about self and about the will. So if I'm going to work a program, I need to at some point make some healthy decisions. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to being zippy. I just would like to check if that's okay with you. Sorry, Wilvena, I couldn't message you directly.
I have something from the literature for that.
Okay, should we take Robin and then back to you, Wilvena?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Frankie. And Robin.
Hello, family, and thank you for this. This is beautiful. I'm enjoying it immensely. And I know for me, when I'm in self-will, I am obsessive and compulsive, and I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm wanting to fix it, work it, manipulate it, turn it upside down, inside out, and whatever I got to do to make it right for me. And I know that for me, if that isn't in line with the God of my understanding, then self-will is bad for me, and it causes me pain. And it's a ripple effect. If I'm in pain, others are going to be in pain as well, either emotionally, mentally, and in my past, you know, in active addiction physically. I mean, it's real. Yeah, that's how I know if I'm getting nutty, you know, and just not really I get uncomfortable inside. I get all squirrely. I feel unsettled, you know, because, you know, I'm not calling my sponsor. I'm not talking to the people, and just like it's been shared. I shut down, and it's my will. And if my will is not in line with the God of my understanding's will, then it's bad. If my will is in line with the God of my understanding's will, my self-will is third step prayer. You know, if my will is in line with my higher power's will, then it's good. So yeah, that's me. That's for me. I don't know if it made any sense. I don't know if I'm crazy. Of course I'm crazy, but anyway, thanks. I pass.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks so much, Robin, and everybody. And, you know, to Frankie's question, I remember when I first got here, the first spiritual principle I was able to apply was goodwill. Goodwill is the opposite of self-will. And here's what it says in another Look IP. Goodwill is an action that includes others besides ourselves, a way that considers others as important in their own lives as we are in ours. It's the beginning of empathy. So goodwill, you know, I remember at my first meetings, and I really had like no social skills at all. So I had like the greeter position. So part of the goodwill as the greeter is to just say, welcome to the meeting, right? Let me introduce you to some of the people in the home group. So even if I felt like crap, just doing something nice for someone else. And I heard also the kind of comments about like our kids or our partners. I mean, I remember most of the times, you know, especially our families want to remind us how we fucked up when we were using, right? And like they want to tell us some things. So instead of the first response being like a horrible knee-jerk response, trying to say something kind and acknowledge that person, you know, like I remember my older son never used to help me clean up at all. And when I would tell him, you know what, thank you so much for putting those dishes away, instead of saying, how come there's dishes in this sink? You know what, he started doing it more. Or if I said to my partner, you know, when you talk to me like that, I feel really horrible, but I just need to let you know, I appreciate you, you know, supporting me through these challenges, because I know I've been really difficult, you know. And then talking to myself, giving myself goodwill. When I first got here, I said horrible things to myself every day. You fucked up your life, right? You know, nobody likes you. Nobody wants to hear anything. So I needed to show myself some goodwill. I needed to say, I'm a good person and I'm getting better, you know? And that was like my first spiritual principle. So just like we only have, I think, like a couple more sections. The next one talks about the God of my understanding and kind of relying on the God of my understanding. And to me, the third step is also the preparation for me to start looking at my part in step 4, right? So I was taught that my part in the third step, it's kind of like a bicycle, right? Like I'm pedaling along. And once I have the trust for my higher power, I can let go of the steering wheel. I can keep pedaling, so the bike is still going forward, but I'm letting my higher power steer the bike, right? And that's how I kind of understand how my higher power is gonna, you know, impact my life with my third step. Like I have the things I'm supposed to do. Like if my finances are messed up, what bills can I cut? Maybe I can buy something else. Maybe I'll get humble and I'll ask for an extension on paying this bill. Like, that's my part, right? And then the way it works out is my higher power lets it work out, because I didn't do something like shoplift from the store, right? Or just ignore the bill person or curse them out, right? So the question I have for this section is, how does my higher power communicate with me? How does my higher power communicate with me?
Thanks, Wilvena. If anyone would like to answer that question, if you just put your hand up in the reactions. James, if you'd like to come in.
Thanks, Kerry, and thanks, Wilvena. Thanks, Kerry. I was muted there, I think. And thanks, Wilvena. Really enjoying this workshop. He sends me signs either in my gut or little signs, and he has done all my life. Sometimes I've been too high to to realize it, and but yeah, just little signs and little gut feelings. That's how he lets me know. Thanks, I'll leave it there.
Kerry, were you taking people in there? Sorry, I have to run to the loo. Who's okay? Do you want me to take back? Oh, you're muted. Mohammed, you're up next. Thanks for covering for me, Kerry.
For me, by sharing and attending meetings. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Next up is Kyle, and then we've got May. Right, bear with me, Kyle, just unmuting it. There you go.
Yeah, cheers, man. What I find that works for me is my higher power communicates through people, places, and things. So if I'm going through a situation and, you know, I got the surrender part, and then, you know, I go through the restoration to sanity, or whatever the situation is, I always look towards my predecessors or people who have been through situations or information on websites or whatever it is to get the answers. And that works for me, because that's kind of the way I see it, is my higher power has already put everything in place. I've just got to find it.
Thank you, Kyle. May?
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so for me, my higher power communicates to me through anything, anyone, anywhere, providing I am able to hear, providing I'm able to see. Sometimes it's through the literature, sometimes it's in a meeting. At the moment, it's through you guys here. It's my sponsors, my direct link to my higher power when my head is busy. And so are another recovering addict when I pick up the phone. I could be out and I'll see a billboard and it's just got a message, and I'm like, oh, you know, I need to be in alignment to get that message. Sometimes I'm not in alignment, I see it and I ignore it. Yeah.
Thank you, May. And then we've got Jane.
Hi. Yeah, I'm the same as May. Do you know what I mean? Everything and anything. But what I have noticed about my higher power and what I would consider, because what May was talking about, I consider sort of indirect. Do you know what I mean? Indirect. They're like the little epiphanies, the little wake me up, and when I'm in a trance in the day, they're the little things that snap me out of it. That's the ones outside myself. But my direct commune with my higher power is really quiet. That's what I've noticed about my higher power. It's really quiet. You know, it doesn't fight for my attention. It doesn't try to drown out the voice of the disease. It doesn't, you know, it's really quiet, but it's also really consistent. It's really consistent and it's always there. Yeah, so quiet, that's what I would say, quietly.
Thank you, Jane. Ruben, I don't know if you meant to take your hand down, did you? Did you want to come in?
Young drivers will keep going in and out, so that's why I put it down. But how do I communicate with my higher power? Wilvena, you're hitting strong. But it's all good. In order to be able to do that, man, I had to like finish all 12 because
Oh, you muted yourself, Ruben.
that's all I did. As I continue working the steps, then I'm able now to understand that in order to really connect and listen to my higher power, I need to be able to quiet the mind. If my mind races crazy, man, it races all over the damn place. So when I'm able to silence it a little bit and quiet it down, then I'm able to hear my higher power through anything. Like I was able to, I've been quiet. Everybody in the car has been talking and I've been quiet, just listening to Wilvena. And I'm able to hear the God of my understanding through her because I'm able to stay silent enough to be able to listen. See, check this out. Share something with you. And Wilvena, you probably know this anyway, right? In order to listen to God, I need to be silent, right? And the word silent and listen are spelled with the same letters. Is that something? So I need to be able to do that in order to be able to hear it, you know? So when I'm silent, I'm able to listen. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Ruben. Matt?
Thanks, Ruben.
Mine's is more like synchronicities and coincidences. I notice a lot.
You've frozen, Matt, I think. Is it just me or is Matt frozen?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Okay, Matt, we'll just come back to you in a second. Kieran?
Hi, I guess my higher power speaks to me like everybody else in many, many ways. If I could just give an example of a kind of moment last week that happened, because sometimes it's a real physical sensation and a feeling of feeling safe and warm and sometimes curious. I was doing a peer share and I was about to do my life story part and talk about, you know, what led to addiction, being abused, all those kind of things. And I suddenly had a really, really, really strong presence of my grandmother and her sisters and my aunts who were all dead, and my female cousins who were all alive, and my mum. And I just had this really overwhelming sense of them, and I could feel them, if that makes sense. And I didn't actually hear the words, but the words just came of, take courage, Kieran, you're a North, which is our family name. You're a North woman, you can do this. And it came out of nowhere, and it was truly beautiful. Thanks.
Kieran. Frankie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, if that's okay. I was listening to everyone. It's just one of the big things I found with step 3 for myself was my desire to get conscious contact, but the problem I was having was I had to really go through the rest of the program to understand my correct use of my will. So my sponsor explained something to me, which can sound a bit rough, but it made sense for a while. And what he said was, Frankie, the shit's definitely going to hit the fan, mate. It's definitely going to hit the fan. But the thing is, you don't own the fan anymore. And I kind of understand that. See, because what I've had to do is do the guide of the next right thing. And if I'm not sure, then I can contact Wilvena or another addict or my sponsor or something. I have to do the next right thing. It's so easy for me to get distracted with the religious voodoo kind of stuff, because I'm not like that. I need to have something which is tangible. That's just me. Everyone has their own trip, don't they? So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Frankie. And before we go back to Wilvena, Matt, we just lost you there. Do you want to come back in? Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, it started raining here, so my Wi-Fi's playing up. Yeah, I was just saying for me, it's the synchronicities and the coincidences that I see now that I've vocalized, now that I'm in a place where I feel centered, and I can stop and be present and be in the moment and look at the trees and see the wind moving the leaves. Now, when I vocalize things, within an hour or two, it's come up in conversation, or somebody's brought a subject up in an email or a text message that I was speaking about just a little while ago, and it all feels like it's moving in the right direction, and I'm being positioned on the right path. So yeah, but it only happens when I'm centered. Previously, when I wasn't in the right frame of mind, when I would vocalize something because I wanted to do it based on self-will, it would just be shut down and it wouldn't happen. But now it's all those little synchronicities, all those little coincidences or light bulb moments that happen all the time now. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I know for all the other people that shared too, I know that you know, they say this is a program of repetition, but also a practice. And I know that one of the reasons that they say in the third step that I could turn my will over and take it back again, and that God allows it, it's because I need to practice that. So I heard a lot of people share about the recognition or awareness of, like, you know, some people call it a God shot, you know, like I had an awareness that that my higher powers let me know things are working out, like I'm doing the right thing. And then kind of like what Ruben and Frankie was sharing about, like that deeper connection that we get when we start working step 7, when we work step 11, that deeper surrender that they talk about, all of that is like through practice, you know. And then Ruben talking about the listening part. So, I mean, the thing that's very cool about the second step overlap into the third step, you know, it says the pain forces us to reach out to a power greater than ourselves in step 2. But by the time I get to step 3, I'm doing it when I'm also not in pain. I'm starting to build this habit up of getting myself grounded before I'm making like a wild decision and just running off, right? I'm getting the practice of turning it over, and I've had God demonstrate some evidence to me that, like, you know, Wilvena, when you kind of get an informed conscious, when you do this, when you get centered, and then you make that decision, you know, it's going to be okay. And so, you know, the turning it over part, it says that it seems easier for us to grasp the destructive nature of our self-will and see that that must be surrendered, right? But it's harder for us to grasp the need to turn our lives and the process over to surrender. So it's definitely like that practicing part. So, you know, the question for this section is, how might my life be changed if I make the decision to turn it over to my higher powers' care? How would my life be different? How can I start to envision that for myself? So that's like one question. And then the other, I guess the other question for those people that have done that, you know, what were those times like when I was able to do that?
Okay, thanks, Wilvena. So how might your life be different with turning your life over? Jane, and please feel free, you know, there's no wrong or right answers here. So if you just please wade in. Great. Okay, we've got Jane first.
Hi. Oh,
We got you, Jane.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, right, okay. It just came up that the host wasn't letting you unmute yourself. That's what it said. And I was like, oh, what went on? Yeah, I'll tell you, through the process of my practice, which, you know, is the principles of all the steps, and my practice of prayer and meditation, through that practice, oh my God, my life is so much more peaceful. I see so much more beauty. I have far deeper and more intimate relationships with the people I love and care for. I am much less selfish. I'm much more able to be of service. My life has just absolutely opened up in, you know, in that way, because I'm not focused on getting my own way. In fact, do you know what? I don't even care anymore about my own way. That's how much it's changed from. I don't even care if it doesn't go my own way. I'm much more open to the direction that life takes me in, and I'm much more able to, you know, to surrender that part of myself that wants things to go. It's made me more curious. It's made me just easier to live with as well, and easier to be around. Just opened up my life in ways I can't see in like such a condensed period of time. But it's a really worthwhile thing to do, is to surrender your will and your life over to your higher power. Really, really worthwhile. And just because I just live in much, do you know what I mean? It's like I've made a 3-part harmony of the spiritual, mental and physical aspects of my disease, and we're all just like, do you know what I mean? It's just that it's my inner, my outer world have come together. So there's no separation anymore. So I don't know, it's quite hard to articulate anything spiritual, but that's how it's changed for me.
Lovely, thank you, Jane. Art?
Thank you, Paul, and thanks to any other group servants. And Wilvena, thank you for conducting this workshop. Really interesting how other people interpret step 3. In answer to the question, what it did for me, it opened the door for the solution. Until I did a step 4, I didn't stand a chance. My experience bears that out. I've lost count of the number of steps 3s. Turning my will and my life over to the care of God did not keep me clean. It was only when after doing a step 4, did I stand a chance. And I'm talking about years of, I don't know how many step 3s I've done out that step working guide, 3 or 4. And I've done out the basic text. I've done it with another fellowship as well. And what I found was writing War and Peace on each answer was delaying me from the rest of the solution. Well, I had to go through it verbally in the end to get to a step 4. Going back over 1, 2, 3, you know, it wasn't working. My sponsor said, you need a quick recap, get you onto a step 4. That's where the magic happened for me. And I've done a number of step 3s with sponsees. I don't use the step working guide. This is my personal view. I respect everyone else's. You know, I use the basic text for them and get them right onto a step 4. But you know what? It was the willfulness that nearly killed me, wanting everything my way. And when I seen in step 3 how willful I was and all the destruction of that. And the decision was the biggest decision I made in step 3 was to work the rest of the steps. It was the rest of the steps. It's a 12-step program that keeps me clean. And, you know, in some of the previous questions, you know, I believe God works through people. And I hear you tonight, Wilvena, you know, he's working through you. But I listen to my sponsor's direction. It stops me being willful. In step 10, have we got any secrets? He knows my inventory. I check things out with him and I get the guidance I need to stay on this track. And you know what? The biggest thing that keeps me clean today is helping others. This program is all about helping others. And I know people have to work it at their own pace, at different paces. For me, you know, trying to be thorough in the early days didn't work for me. You know, when I got, as I say, when I got to a step 4. But listen, it's a broad church, and I don't mean a religious church. It's lovely to hear different people's experience. Thank you all for contributing. I'm just going, I can't give you a hug, but I can give you a virtual hug. Loads of love, everyone.
Lots of love to you, Art. Great to hear you.
You can have a kiss as well. No tongues.
Thank you, Art. Lovely to listen to you. Okay, we've got Mohammed and then May.
It's really comfortable when I surrender to my higher power. Maybe like 2 months ago, I was saving a lot of money because I was planning to travel with my wife. But the truth was that I wanted to travel alone, and I didn't tell that to my sponsor, and I kept this reservation inside of me. And eventually it went out, and my sponsor knew what I wanted to do, because I sent him every night like the list of things that I feel and the things that happen in my day. And so eventually he told me that this is what you want to do. I know that you want to go play with that money. You don't want to spend it on your wife. So I was holding that rope so hard and I didn't want to let go. That was my own will. And when I let go, it was really comfortable. And when I looked at my hands, you know, they were all bloody and stuff. So that's how my sponsor put it for me. He told me that when you let go, things will go in order, and you don't know how to do it. And it's God's will that it's gonna like be the best decision for you than your own will. Maybe that's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And May?
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, for me, I'm a bit like Jane. So I get peace. I get, you know, in the God grant me the serenity. That's where I get the serenity, when I let go, and I not just let go, but when I align and I stop trying to control the outcome, and I do what I need to do in that moment, whatever it is. You know, when I do the right thing, I get peace of mind. This is where the peace comes, and that's what and I get my higher powers will for me, which is to live with dignity, grace, and purpose, all the stuff that we get in Step 11.
Thank you, May.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. What to me, the biggest gift that I get from Step 3 is I get to turn over the worry, the frustration, the anxiety, you know, the mental torture. And I'm able to do things like go to sleep without running a tape in my mind of like, what if this and what if that? You know, so I'm able to turn those feelings over for, you know, what people shared about getting a sense of peace, that I know I've done the right thing. I'm able to have more fun because I'm not battling that. And actually, you know, it was real interesting. I was listening to Art talk about the connection between Step 3 and Step 4. I was one of those addicts. It talks about being afraid to face those demons in the closet, right? Like if we uncover that stuff, even though we've done it before. So Step 3 lets me know I can survive all of that, right? Step 3 lets me know that if I turn over my fear, my worry that I'm gonna uncover that I'm like a horrible, fucked up human being, you know, that God is gonna prepare me to kind of examine like the rest of my part and you know, the exact nature in the later step work. You know, the Step 3 gives me the courage to look at a question a day or a couple of questions a day in my step work and like keep going. And then, you know, the other part of the basic text where it says, we don't even have to understand this program for it to work. All we have to do is follow direction. So a big portion, and when it talks about the spiritual principles of Step 3, it talks about surrender and willingness. I know that for me, my sponsor used to talk to me in terms of the third step. I would tell her something that was going on and she'd say, well, Vina, that's a lack of a third step. I was like, what are you talking about right now? She was like, oh, well, you just told me you went to the business meeting and you went on the sidewalk and you tried to tell everyone to vote for your motion and you were trying to intimidate and call people on the phone. And then you were doing a whole bunch of big arguing back and forth. That's a lack of a third step. Like your part is you say what your perspective is, your viewpoint, you share that, and then you let your higher power take care of what is going to happen. Maybe it's no for now. And I've also, because I do a lot of service, I've also seen where some motions and suggestions that I've made have taken 3 years to come to pass, but they've come to pass in God's time. Everyone else had to be in agreement with that. And that's how, you know, that I think for me, one of the hardest parts also of the third step was part of the willingness to take the kind of constructive observations that my sponsor was making. After my sponsor has done step 1, step 2, and step 3, there's a reason why step 4 is not step 1, because in building all the trust that I need, and that my getting the trust also of, and the willingness to listen to my sponsor's suggestions, and then by extension, listen to the subtle suggestions of my higher power, right? To be able to do this, like that willingness piece was the last part that I needed to, to do. So when it talks about, these questions, it says willingness often comes in the wake of despair or a struggle for control. So, one of the questions that it asks, it says, am I fighting anything in my recovery? It says, they're asking the question of what am I doing to reinforce my decision to allow my higher power to care for my will and my life? So what am I doing to reinforce that? Sometimes it's just waiting. Sometimes it's waiting and listening. But for me, I have to tell you, I was also one of those addicts that my sponsor would say, well, if you just tell me before what you're thinking about doing, instead of calling me after you've made these horrible decisions in your life, right? And it took me a long time to actually trust and call before, right? Before I'm thinking about doing all these things instead of reporting the horrible things that I've done. And the same thing with my higher power, asking my higher power for guidance before, as opposed to asking my higher power to get my ass out of a jam, right? Asking before. So, so that's the question that I have for you guys in terms of, applying the spiritual principles of surrender and willingness. What am I doing to reinforce that? Or in what ways have I demonstrated my willingness?
Okay, would anyone like to come back in? Jane, Frankie, I'll get Jane first, then Frank. Oh, hang on, sorry, I'm jumping about. Okay, Jane, you're up.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all of this. It's making me think. I think how I demonstrate my willingness is where I keep my focus. So I keep my focus very much on the principles. So it's like, it's my attention and my intention. So if I keep my focus in these two places, and that means like everything. That means like I'm hanging out with people that build me up, or where's my attention and what is my intention? These are the questions that I ask myself to keep myself aligned, and that's the way in which I'm willing. These are the lengths that I go to. I mean, like, I don't, like having toxic relationships with people is not something that so I have to be willing to let go of relationships. So I have to be willing to let go of people, places, and things. And I absolutely am today, much quicker than I used to be, to let something go that isn't serving myself, my higher power, or my commitment to living a principled life. So that's it, yeah, for me.
Thank you, Jane. Frankie?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, for me, in the early days, what I'd learned with the step 3 was basically, if I want a relationship, I don't start praying to have a relationship. I'm given the ability to go out and earn some money so I can buy a toothbrush, get some clothes and go out on a date. It's like with lots of things I understand with my higher power, like what was really said well by Art, was my higher power gives me the ability to do the step work. So if I want to accept step 3, I'll get on by doing the rest of the steps. I start step 4. So it started to become a lot easier for me to understand that if I want recovery, I have to go to meetings, I have to mix with recovery addicts, because the way my step 3 set up for me, because of how my interpretation, being an atheist as such, is that the action is I have to do something. I really, really have to do something. And it even says it in our basic text here. It says about putting in the action, you know, is, sorry, I can't quote it exactly, I had it in front of me just now, but it's basically, it allows us, the God of our understanding puts us in a position that allows us to be able to go and do something. I'm the one who has to create the change. I'm just given the opportunity by engaging. So that's what I really had to get my head around, you know. So yeah, I'd like to quote Usman there, but it wouldn't be fair, would it? You know what I mean? I can see you guys smiling, you know, if I've got to do it. If you want to get fucked, you got to get in position. So I've done a little flip on that. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Frankie. And Robin?
Oh, you are so bad. I love Frankie. My name is Robin and I'm an addict and he's a hoot. And he's right. And I don't have to like it, is what I found. I show my willingness to the God of my understanding's will for me by doing the footwork. Now, I have gotten jobs when I needed jobs and not, you know, but the God of my understanding gave me that job. And I have had to deal with personalities up in there. Can't run from them. So I pray and I turn it over. And, you know, when the pain gets great enough, change will come and I'll start doing the footwork and the God of my understanding will move me along. I don't have to like it, but I have to be willing to surrender to that and show and do my part. I have to do my part, you know. And then I get miracles, blessings, whatever you want to call them, behind that. That's what my experience has been. I didn't always like going to meetings in the early days, you know. I got to a place where I didn't like this meeting anymore. Oh, she talks all the time. He talks too long, blah, 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 you know. But I had to go to the meeting and, you know, there were times when there was conflict and my sponsor made me go sit beside the person that I had the conflict with. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to like it. I just have to do it and show my willingness and God changes me, you know, and the God of my understanding changes my life. And it's worked for me so far, you know, it's worked for me so far. So I'm going to keep doing it. I just, you know, and I just try to learn to make better, wiser, more thought out decisions, you know, and pray and listen, you know. This is a great meeting. I'm so grateful you're here and doing this. And this is beautiful. You don't know how.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks for your enthusiasm. Kyle.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers, mate. Can you repeat the question to me, please? Because I've just been listening to everyone and I totally forgot the question.
Wilvena, do you want to?
Yeah, what am I doing to reinforce my decision for my higher power to care for me?
Okay, yeah, right. Mainly just showing up, even when I don't feel like showing up, like in most areas of my life. And it's one of those things, whereas when I first come to recovery, I found it really difficult to show up when I was going through thoughts, feelings, emotions, and stuff like that. Now I'm more able to just turn up and let the situation run its course, even if it's going to work, going to family events, going to meetings and stuff like that. I had to be willing to. When they talk about honesty and self-honesty, it took a little while before I became willing to really be honest. And when I first came to recovery, there's parts in the basic text that say most of us or some of us and stuff like that. And I wanted to qualify myself when I came to NA. So I'd kind of always say, yeah, I'm the most of us or I'm the some of us. But in some of it, I'm not. And I had to be willing to be honest about that. And the one part, when I first came to NA, is where it says, in Who's an Addict, most of us didn't have to think twice about this question. I came to NA like saying, oh, I didn't have to think twice. I didn't, because I wanted to look like the recovering addict. I thought twice and I relapsed, you know what I mean? I got a little bit of clean time and I started thinking twice. So I've had to become, you know, I'm a lot more honest with where I'm at, what I'm going through and stuff like that. And that's how, with honesty and open-mindedness and remaining teachable, is reinforcing my willingness to take my higher power's guidance.
Thank you, Kyle.
So in the last portion of the way they have it, you know, in the step working guide, they've got like the moving on section and all of that. And they say that we're profoundly relieved to realize that the world will go along just fine without our intervention, right? For those of us that are control freaks, you know, I remember somebody told me, and I think it also says in our literature, you know, I need Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous doesn't need me. So I can get all mad at the fellowship. I can get mad at this meeting. I can get mad at people sharing. But you know what? The great thing about step 3, I can be mad, but then I can get glad again, you know? And it definitely reminds me, like for anybody that has toddlers or remember, you know, that growth period that you go through, like the terrible, they call it the terrible 2s, but the terrible 3s. It's like that emotional tantruming, you know, that I was doing. Like, I don't want to do this. I refuse to do it. It talks about the idea that step 3 is the deeper level of surrender that we have learned from step 1. You know, we learn in step 1 that we never have to fight again. We never have to use again. Well, in step 3, I don't have to battle myself again, right? Like when I ask, you know, God to take my will in my life and show me how to live, I'm not asking for any specific thing. I'm not asking for a specific amount of money, a specific person. I'm asking him to show me how to live, because I had a big problem knowing how to show up and present myself. So, you know, once again, I'm gonna challenge anybody. If you have the Just for Today and you look in the back and under any of those 14 entries for step 3, this is the one on page 124 where it says God does for us. It says at times we may get stuck in our recovery, unable, afraid, or unwilling to make the decisions we know we must make to move forward. Through the grace of our higher power, unexpected change may occur precisely in the area we felt unable to alter. So, you know, I guess the last question that I'll ask, because I guess we're winding down, is do I have any reservations about my decision to turn my will and my life over to God's care?
Okay, Kyle, and you know, feel free if you haven't spoken tonight, feel free to come in for this last bit. Kyle, you're up first.
I'm really enjoying this. This isn't in line with like using drugs, but when I spoke earlier about kind of my financial side of things, one of my biggest reservations about turning that stuff over to the care of my higher power is the fear of missing out. Do you know what I mean? And I get to when I start obsessing or compulsing about something that I want to buy, and then it takes over, like the obsession makes me, or I make myself sort of mix up my priorities and stuff like that. It's usually because I just don't want to miss out, or I want something so bad. It's just when it comes to buying things, like I'm into tech and stuff like that. So I've bought gaming PCs and monitors and all of this stuff. And I've put myself in a little bit of a pickle, not a big one. I'm fortunate that I'm working and I can get myself out of any, like my phone bill's really, really high. It's just that thing of, I always tell myself I never had anything growing up, and now I'm in a position to get it. I prioritize what I want over really what I need, and I struggle to live within my means, and that's one of the parts that I find it important. It's one part. Sorry, I'll end on that. It's one part where I feel like it's not going to change anytime soon because it's really, really difficult.
Thank you, Kyle. Jane.
Hi. I don't think I have little reservations like come up now, but because of this program, I'm able to work on them and see them as reservations, so that's that. And God, and also because I've got so much evidence of God doing for me things that I was unable to do myself, be it get out of a toxic relationship, get out of a work situation, like whatever it be, people, places and things, removing people, places and things from my life when I've been unable to make the decision. One thing that I thought I would never be able to do was love myself. I thought I was never going to be able to do that. And how I started with that, with the help of my higher power and the people that my higher power put into my life to help me with that. How I started with that was being kind to myself, and then I learned to be kind to what was unkind inside of me. And once I learned to be kind to what was unkind inside of me, there was just a tremendous healing that rippled out, do you know what I mean, to the people that are in my life, to the people that I love. And then they were able to heal from that as well. So, they say in here, beyond your wildest dreams. Now, when I first came in, that was very material. Beyond my wildest dreams was like, do you know what I mean? Having like 3 homes in 3 different continents and a private jet to fly between them. But now I understand beyond my wildest dreams is beyond my cognitive understanding. It's in the spiritual realm, and it is being able to love myself. It's something as simple as being able to love myself. I would never have dreamed that would ever have come true, but here I am, So yeah, no reservations that I can't work on because of what I've been given from this program. Thanks.
Lovely, Jane. Thank you. Stuart, would you like to come in?
Yeah, good afternoon, members. My name is Stuart. I'm grateful to cover another from Trinidad.
Hi, Stuart.
I highlight from Trinidad, step 3 here. As addicts, we turn our will and our lives over many times in a destructive power. Our will and our lives were controlled by drugs. We were trapped by our need for instant gratification that drug gave us. For all of us, the day came when there was no longer a choice. We had to use. Having given our will and our lives over to the addiction, and under desperation, we look for other ways in narcotics anonymous. We decide to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. You see, when we live into use and use to live, we turn our will and life over to the disease of addiction. The obsession, the compulsion, the self-centered person, cunning, baffling, insidious, and very patient to within the ambush. So you see, we know, all of us know about the obsession and compulsion. But I don't know about the cunning and baffling and insidious. So I had to ask my higher power for help to help me understand that, because I don't know words and meaning. I think I'm so bright now. So he helped me to understand it. It's about confusion, it's about lies. You know, because the disease could come as the God of my understanding and whisper in my ear, hey, do this, this what to do. But I go and do it my way. So I listen to that pussyfooting and bullshit voice and went and do it my way and end up in trouble. So if this small voice comes to me, I still had it, I don't turn my will and life over to the God of my understanding, because surrender the disease, so I take back my will from the disease and I turn it over to God with all the direction. So when this small voice comes to confuse my head, I had to turn around and ask, God of my understanding, help me make the right choices and right decisions. It's you I asking for help. I'm not asking the disease of addiction for help. But they say money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. So what we have to understand, we have to be that bright to understand money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. See, anything we put in front of our recovery is because we ego, we still in denial and saying I surrender. Just surrender. I surrender all my energy and all my blood, everything over to the God of my understanding. I take back my will from the disease and turn it over to the God of my understanding. So I cannot do anything on my own anymore. Anytime I start to do things on my own, and because the disease is a winner, and I will go back and lose and start back to live in pain and get desperate and greed and resentment and anger and guilt and shame and all this sort of bullshit and pussyfooting come back in my life. So I can't afford to leave crack and crease and loopholes. I had to put all my energy into recovery, my personal recovery, because who's responsible for my personal recovery? Nobody in the room here responsible for my recovery. George responsible for his recovery. I have somebody to guide me through the process. The God of my understanding guide me to a sponsor, and sponsor guide me to the process. My sponsor don't tell me what to do. He guide me with suggestions and direction, because Stuart have to work the program. Everything that he learn, listen to learn and learn to listen. Everything apply and live it to the best of my ability. So my sponsor cannot work my program for me. Because every time I call my sponsor, I get cut, I call my sponsor, you say get a plaster. So I had to go and get a plaster, I had to go to the drugstore, go to wherever in the selling plaster and buy a plaster and put it on some cotton or some flavine or something to put on it. I get a pain. Call my sponsor, I get a pain. What you tell me? Go in the drugstore and talk to the druggist and go by the doctor. So I have to start to do things. I have to make my choice and my decision, but I have to ask the God and my understanding to help me make the right choices. You see, when I'm going to sleep, it could be morning, noon, night, evening, whatever time I go to sleep. I ask my higher power to help me go into meditation so I can get some wisdom.
Thank you, Stuart. Oh, sorry,
yes,
didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just bringing Frankie now. Frankie, thank you, Stuart.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Coming to NA for 10 years and not getting more than a year clean time, I didn't know that I had a reservation. It's really cunning, baffling and powerful, this program. I really liked Rubin reminding us that, you know, to be silent is to listen, and, you know, each word makes the other one up. You know, I have to learn to listen, but I need to try and find out what to learn to listen for. And my sponsor pointed something out to me, because at the time the Nokia phones had just kind of come out in 2003, and I didn't want to turn my phone off. I'd go to a meeting and I didn't want to turn my phone off. I had a reservation, and the reservation was, had my fucking phone on. You know, you see people in meetings, you know, they're on their phone. They're not present. And to have the gift is to have the present, isn't it? So, yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Frankie. So it looks like we're coming to the conclusion of the meeting. I think so. right?
Yeah, I think we're
And,
coming to that point. Thank you, Wilvena. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm just gonna end by saying, you know, this is a simple program. This program was not created for rocket scientists. We don't have to be professors. We don't have to have a degree. Actually, I've learned that, like, the smarter I am, the tougher time that I've had because of my rebelliousness and willfulness. But you know what? It does say also that true spiritual principles are never in conflict and they complement each other. So the spiritual principles of goodwill, trust, and the care that we show one another, to me, that's like the beginning of the ability to practice a third step and doing my part. And you know what, going to sleep and doing it again the next day. You know, because I can't also stay clean on yesterday's decisions as well. So I'm gonna end with that. And I love you all. Thank you so much for you know, helping me participate in my recovery and everyone else. I love you guys over there. I'm definitely gonna come back over there at some point soon. Frankie actually helped me and my family when I was over there. He helped us download some apps and get around. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Wilvena. Listen, can we all give Wilvena a round of applause? You know, it's kind of thank you on behalf of the group, Wilvena. You know, you've put a huge amount of work into this.